Good morning and welcome to This Week. Crossing the red line. President Obama signs off on arms to the Syrian rebels.
I want to know what the end game is.
Is he going too far?
Just to provide additional weapons is not enough.
Or is it too little too late? And
Congress needs to act, and that moment is now.
the battle over immigration reform. Will it pass? This morning, a key player in both debates, Senator Marco Rubio, a This Week exclusive. Then, all the week's politics.
We aren't trying to hide it. We're trying to protect America.
More scrutiny over surveillance and Iran's surprising pick for president. Plus, another exclusive.
He's the best dad and the best man I've ever met.
Jeb Bush in our Father's Day Sunday Spotlight.
From ABC News, This Week with George Stephanopoulos. Reporting from Washington, Jonathan Karl.
Hello again, George is off. It is great to have you with us. Is the U.S. about to get involved in yet another war in the Middle East? After determining that Syria's government did in fact use chemical weapons, crossing President Obama's red line, the White House has made a decision to send arms to the Syrian rebels. Many in Congress have been pushing for more action, including our first guest, Florida Republican Senator Marco Rubio, who joins us now from Miami. Good morning, Senator, and happy Father's Day.
Good morning. Happy Father's Day to you and to all your viewers.
Thank you. So you've been pushing for a long time for the U.S. to arm the rebels. Is this going to make a difference?
Well, let me just say that in politics or in foreign policy, timing matters. So these were options that were there for us a year and a half ago. Before this thing kind of became this chaotic, it behooved us to kind of identify whether there was any elements there within Syria fighting against Assad that we could work with reasonable people that wouldn't carry out human rights violations and could be part of building a new Syria. We failed to do that. This president failed to do that. So now your options are quite limited. Now the strongest groups fighting against Assad, unfortunately, are al-Qaeda-linked elements. Now, that doesn't mean that they all are, but it's certainly this group has become the most organized, the best armed, the best equipped. Our options are now really narrower than they were a few months ago. So, look, I think we should continue to search to see if there are any elements fighting against Assad that are reasonable, that we can work with, that will respect human rights and hopefully build a new Syria. I just think it's a lot tougher now when you've got Hezbollah running around and Russia fully arming Syria and Iran fully engaged in this as well. I think that the fact that it's taken this White House and this president so long to get a clear and concise policy on Syria has left us with the worst possible scenario right now.
Okay, so we're here now, though. What would President Rubio do right now? Would you commit U.S. forces to a no-fly zone?
First of all, if I was in charge of this issue, we never would have gotten to this point. We would have identified elements that we could have worked with, and we would have made sure that those elements, not the al-Qaeda elements, were the best armed, best equipped, and best trained. That being said, I think we need to continue to search for elements on the ground that we can work with, and we should try to do the best we can to increase their viability and their strength so that if and when Assad falls, and we hope that he still will, they'll be the ones on the ground with the best ability to kind of manage a future, hopefully democratic Syria and peaceful Syria.
Before we leave the Middle East, we obviously had a big election in Iran over the weekend. The most moderate candidate won. So let me ask you this. Is Iran under a President Rouhani going to be potentially easier to deal with, less of a threat than Iran under President Ahmadinejad?
First of all, moderate by Iranian political standards is not what we would describe as moderate here in the West. But let me just say that I hope so, because the people of Iran do not want the future that their leaders have wanted. The people of Iran want to engage with the rest of the world, do not want to be isolated, don't want Iran going back to the 16th and 17th century. They'd like to be part of the 21st century, the people of Iran. And hopefully this will be a step in that direction. But I'm not all that optimistic. At the end of the day, in order to have better relations, not just with the United States, but with the world, Iran knows exactly what it needs to do. It needs to abandon its nuclear weapons ambitions, and it needs to pledge to walk away from these things. And unfortunately, this gentleman who was just elected is a strong supporter of the nuclear program and the nuclear weaponization as well. And so the bottom line is that we are hopeful that that's the case, but at the end of the day, the supreme leader calls the shots in Iran, and it's still the same supreme leader that has put Iran on this very dangerous track.
Okay, I want to turn to immigration. You are one of the primary architects, author of the bill that came out of the Senate Judiciary Committee, immigration reform. I have a basic question for you, Senator. Do you support your own bill?
Well, look, obviously, I think it's an excellent starting point. And I think 96% of the bill is in perfect shape and ready to go, but there are elements that need to be improved. This is how the legislative process is supposed to work. You offer an idea, you get public input and the input of your other colleagues. From these criticisms or observations come out new ideas about how to make it better. And of course, you can't ignore that. Those things need to be addressed. And we have the opportunity to do that now, in particular on the border security element. Look, the vast majority of Americans, the vast majority of conservative Republicans are prepared to support immigration reform, but only if we can ensure that we're not going to have another wave of illegal immigration in the future. And so I think they have pointed to valid criticisms of how the border security plan is structured in the bill, and quite frankly, very reasonable ways to address it.
If the bill stays as it is regarding border security, do you vote for it?
Listen, I really don't want to get involved in these hypotheticals and ultimatums about what I want.
That's a very real possibility, Senator.
Well, no, I don't think it is, because the bottom line is a bill that does not have increased border security, which everyone now, I think, has conceded needs to happen. I think the debate now is about what that border security provision looks like. And if we do that, this bill will have strong bipartisan support. If we fail, we're going to keep trying, because at the end of the day, the only way we're going to pass an immigration reform law out of the House and Senate so the president can sign it is if it has real border security measures within it.
Okay, you've taken some real heat, especially from the right on this. I want to go through just this past week some right-wing commentators. You had Ann Coulter say Chuck Schumer is playing Marco Rubio. Eric Erickson said Marco Rubio is either being played the fool or we are being played the fool by Senator Rubio. Glenn Beck called you a pretty nasty name and said he is not on our side. So what do you say to this, and what has happened? I mean, you used to be the guy hailed as a conservative hero to some of these guys.
Well, I think it's important to remember that on virtually every other issue, I agree with many of the folks that right now are just not supportive of the immigration reform bill. I understand why they're opposed to it. I really do. I mean, we have the most generous country in the history of the world whose immigration laws have been taken advantage of. You have an administration claiming that there's no problem, that the border's already secured when everyone knows there's not. And people are frustrated by this. And to top it all off, when you mention any of these things, you're accused of being anti-immigrant or anti-Hispanic. Now, I recognize there's a division among conservatives about it. I respect other people's views on it. I understand why they're frustrated by it. I just hope people understand that the reason why I've undertaken this is because this is a major problem that's hurting our country. And the only way I know how to fix problems is to get involved in trying to fix them. So,
but directly answer that question. Are you being played by the Democrats? Is Chuck Schumer playing you, is essentially the charge?
I quite frankly, I don't even know what that means, because the fact of the matter is
he using you? Is he using you to try to accomplish something that the Democrats want and is not a conservative bill?
Immigration reform is something that all Americans recognize has to be done. I mean, I don't focus a lot on public polling, but if you look at these public polls, it's clear the vast majority of Americans understand that what we have in place in this country is de facto amnesty, a broken legal immigration system that needs to be reformed.
The president came out this week and he gave one of his first speeches on immigration in quite some time. I'm wondering, do you consider that helpful? Is it helpful when the president comes out as he did and is harshly critical of the critics of this bill?
Well, listen, I think the president has his hands full these days. I didn't, quite frankly, even hear the speech. We were very busy this week. I think I read some headlines here or there. But obviously the president, our job as legislators, as members of Congress, is to pass legislation. And that's what I hope we'll do out of the Senate. And then the House will have its work, and we'll work together to try to solve this problem. And then the president will have a decision to make about whether he wants to sign the bill or not.
All right, before you go, I've got to ask you about the Miami Heat. Series tied at 2. Does LeBron James have to deliver a championship to Miami to be even considered to be in the same league as Michael Jordan?
Well, first of all, is that game on ABC just for the promo
yeah,
purposes?
I believe so.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Yeah, listen, LeBron James is is certainly the greatest player in the world right now and one of the greatest players of all time. And I think by the time his career is over, that'll be evident to all. I expect them to win. I predicted they'd win this series in 6 games. I stick by that prediction. They'll win tonight in San Antonio, and then they'll wrap up the series on Tuesday night here in Miami on ABC. I think pregame coverage begins at 8:30, if I'm not mistaken.
That's 8:30 Eastern. Thank you very much, Senator Rubio. Appreciate it.
Thank you.